how to write a basic select statements and what are the few things that you have to understand about the SQL. So the basic select statements are, when you're writing a queries, like what are the things that you have to understand. So for the first few classes, we are going to understand about how the select statements can be written and how to use the select statements. To understand that, now select is a command to retrieve the data from the database. Select is a statement to retrieve the data from the database, and we are going to see how the select can be written. So now whenever you want to retrieve the data from the table, we already understood that there are tables which are already present in your HR schema, like your employees table, departments table, countries table and everything. And before starting with the queries, you also understand that list of columns which are available in the employees table. List of columns. Columns like employee ID, first name, last name, email, phone number, hire date, and the salary and the commission percentage. So all these columns you should know it before proceeding with it. And also the data types. Data types of each column. What is the data type of each column? So once you understand the structure of these tables, like the columns and the data types, then you can easily write the queries. So whenever you are writing a query, first thing you have to, when I say a query is nothing but a select query. So whenever you are writing a query, first thing you have to understand is which table you want to retrieve the data and what are the columns that you want to retrieve the data and what kind of a transforming logic that you have to perform, and all those things you can use it. Suppose let's say I want to retrieve the entire data from employees table. So how to use the query? So to retrieve all the columns, we use a select. Select specifies the list of columns that you are specifying, and from specifies from which table you are retrieving the data. So let's say I'm retrieving the data from employees table. It's always a good practice that enclose your SQL statement with a semicolon whenever you are reading the SQL. So here the select is a command, and star specifies that all columns from the table. Star means all columns from the table. So which you're going to use. All the columns from the table, and from specifies the table name from which you are retrieving. It specifies the table name from which you are retrieving the data. So when you say select star from employees, it will retrieve the data from employees table. So what are all the columns you have from employee ID to department ID? All the columns will be retrieved. So to execute a query in the SQL developer, so you can select the query and you can use this option to run it, or you can use a control enter. So select always the query which you are executing and then hit control enter. So this will retrieve you the data. If you look at the data now, it has retrieved all the columns. Like employee ID, first name, last name, manager ID and the department ID. Likewise. So you have you are retrieving all the data. So star specifies all the columns from the table. So whenever you are retrieving the data, so we may not need all the kind of columns which are available in the table. We may be interested in retrieving the data only the few columns like last name, salary, and then the department ID or something. Only the few columns which you might be interested in extracting the data. So how do you actually fetch when you want to retrieve the data from few columns? So how to do that? Let's say I want to retrieve the last name, email, salary and the job ID. Last name, email, salary and the job ID. So whenever you want to retrieve the columns, first you need to know the column names. What are the column names that are being used here? So last name is last underscore name, salary and the job underscore ID. So to verify it now, select last underscore name is a column name, and whenever you are retrieving the column list, each column will be separated by comma. Last name and the first name, and you want to retrieve the salary, and at the same time you want to retrieve the job ID. job ID is nothing but the designation of the employee, whether he is a president, vice president, IT programmer, and all those things. From which table? So these are all the columns available in which table? These columns are from the employees table. So you should mention only the employees table name here. So you can't mention the, so that means you can retrieve the columns which are available only in this table. You cannot retrieve it from the other table columns. So select last name, salary, and the job ID. So when you try and do this, now you will get last name, first name, salary, and the job ID. So everything will be retrieved. Now if you see what is difference between the above query, what we have executed, and this query is that this query has retrieved all the columns from the employees table, but whereas in this query I'm interested in retrieving the data, last name, first name, salary, and the job ID from the employees table, not the other columns. So whenever you are writing a query, each column should be separated by comma. So that is the thing that you have to follow when you are writing the query. And the next thing is that to understand about the SQL language, so yesterday somebody asked a question saying that SQL is not you're writing in uppercase, lowercase, it doesn't matter in which case you're writing it. So SQL is not a case sensitive language. SQL is not a case sensitive language. That means if you want to write a select statement in the uppercase or the lowercase or the column name in the mixed case or any case, it's not a case sensitive language. It's not a case sensitive language. SQL is not a case sensitive language. You can write it in any case. And it is also happens that you can split the query into multiple lines. In case if you want to, for a better indentation, if you want to split the query into multiple lines, you can split the query into multiple lines. But when you are splitting the query into multiple lines, split the query into multiple lines. You can split the query into multiple lines, but you cannot split the keywords. So FR in the first line, OM in the second line, you can't do it something like this. So, but you cannot split the keywords when you are writing it. So you cannot split the keywords into different lines. You cannot split the keywords. What are the keywords here? So to understand, from, select, all these things are the keywords that you are going to use it. So the keywords that you use it. So these things, SQL is not a case sensitive, and it is a good practice to end with a semicolon always. And now this is the basic level of understanding how to retrieve the data from the table. So you can practice these queries at your convenient time by, we'll share these notes, whatever is there, we'll share these notes with you, and based on that you can proceed. You can practice it. You can practice them when you are practicing again at your own systems, or the any remote desktop what is being allocated to you. So now the next thing is to understand about the arithmetic operators. So how the arithmetic operators works. An important thing is that arithmetic operators here, whatever you're writing, it will work only on the number columns. You cannot perform arithmetic operators on the character columns. Let's say I have a last name. I cannot add a number to a last name column. That is not works. So it will work only on the number columns. You can perform only on the number columns. So what are the different arithmetic operator? Addition, subtraction, multiplication. Multiplication in the SQL it is called as a star, and the division is a slash, forward slash. Division, for a division we use it as a forward slash. Now we will see how the arithmetic operators will be performed on the system. And what is the order of precedence of execution of arithmetic operators when you are using the multiple things. So let's say you have the salary column here, and I would like to increment the salary by 1,000 for a particular employee. For every employee, I want to increment the salary by 1,000. So you can use the same query here. You can use the same query and then see the difference when you increment the salary, how to increment the salary directly. So I'm using the column here. Instead of the job ID, what I'll do is that I'll retrieve the salary plus 1000. That means I'm incrementing the salary by 1000. So when you try and execute this query, observe the difference. So the employee salary here is at 24,000, and when you have done plus salary plus 1000, it is been 25,000, 25,000, 18,000, 10,000. The salary is incremented like this. So whenever you want to perform arithmetic operators of this kind, you can directly use these operators on the columns. You can directly use these operators on the columns to increment the data or to decrement the data or to multiply the data. Multiply or whatever you want to do, you can do it. Now we are going to observe the query here. So now my next requirement is that, so I just want to understand, I want to calculate the annual salary of an employee. I want to calculate the annual salary of an employee by incrementing the salary by 1000 for everyone. So how are you going to do that? So how will you calculate the annual salary? Annual salary will be multiplied by 12. So I'm going to multiply I have to increment the salary, monthly salary by 1000, and at the same time I have to, do the multiplication. So now my requirement is very clear here. So I want to increment the salary first by 1000, and I want to calculate the annual salary. So what if you have to calculate the annual salary for this employee? What will be the annual salary? So it will become the 25,000 into 12, right? So 24,000 is 24,000 is his actual salary. 24,000 is his actual salary. So when you increment it by 1000, it will become 25,000, and 25 into 12. 25 into 12, how much? So it will become 300. 25 into 12, sorry, that's like 3 lakhs. So the total salary will be 3 lakhs. So now let's see whether it will give us a desired result or not. So my question is that first it has to increment and then multiply that by 12. So when you go and see this, it will not give you the 3 lakh salary, but it is giving you 2,89,000. What is the problem? Is that first it is multiplying. That and then incrementing it by 1000. So you might have heard about the Bodmas rule. Whenever you are using multiple arithmetic operators in the single expression, first your bracket will be evaluated, then the division followed by the multiplication, addition, and the subtraction. That is the Bodmas rule which we use in the general arithmetic operations. This is a Bodmas rule. So when you talk about the arithmetic operators, which you have these kind of thing. So 12 into salary plus 1000. So in order to override the precedence in Oracle, first multiplication will get executed, followed by division, followed by addition, and then the subtraction. So this is the order of precedence. So since this is the first one to execute, first it has to combine it. So how to override the precedence of the operators? So whenever you want to override the precedence of the operators, you can always enclose them in the parenthesis. So now if I'm enclosing within the parenthesis, what will happen? First it will evaluate the expression which is part of the parenthesis, and then it will multiply the things. So when you try and execute here, now see the query how it will be done. So now it is 3 lakhs. So what it is doing first it is incrementing the salary by 1000, and this is being multiplying by 12. So whenever you want to override the precedence, of the operators, always keep them as part of the parenthesis. Okay, so this is how you are going to execute the arithmetic operators. Now the next thing is that you have to understand the use of null values. What is a null value, and how you have to understand the null value in this. What is a null value in Oracle? So this is very important to understand what is null and how to handle the null values in Oracle. So let's say I have a group of columns in my table. If you look at the employees table, you have so many columns. so many columns, and out of which, so if when you are inserting the data, you have not inserted the data for few of the columns. You have not inserted the data for few of the columns. Whenever you are not providing any value for a column, that value for that column will be treated as a null value. That means whenever you are providing the value, you are not inserting any data into that column. You are not inserting any data into that column, or you are not providing any value for that column. That value becomes a null value. So the null value is something that unassigned. This is called as an unassigned value. You are not assigning any value for that column, and it is unavailable. It is unavailable. So nothing is available. Unavailable. So this is called as a. So you cannot consider the null value as a 0. You cannot consider null is not a 0, and null is not a blank space as even. So it is not a 0. You cannot consider the null value as a 0 for a number of columns. It is not a 0, and it is not a blank space. It is not blank space. So now the question is that how to determine whether the column is having a null value. How to determine whether the column is having a null value. This time I'm going to execute the query from my command prompt to observe how the null value is present. So let me just log into HR schema, SQL plus HR/HR @ORCL. So when you do that, so now you have HR. So now I'm going to retrieve. So there is a column called as a commission percentage. There is a column called as a commission percentage, which will give you the commission percentage of the employee. Means how much he's getting as a commission monthly. So it's something like allowance. How much he'll get. So let's try and retrieve the data for the column. Of commission percentage. So let me just retrieve the last name column. Select last name, salary, and the commission percentage from employees. Now see the value how it is present in the commission percentage column. So for everything it is a null. So don't just confuse again here. Do not get confused that you have a value called as a null inside this. You do not have a value, any value as such. It is nothing. You don't have anything in this. So to differentiate, your SQL developer is displaying, since there is nothing in that column, it is displaying within the brackets null. So if you try and execute the same query, from here, so how it will work? So you have these values. So when you try and execute the same query, so not this one, okay, I've not copied it properly, I guess. So that's a wrong one. So let me just execute the query and observe that how the null value will appear over here in the. See now, there is a data which is being retrieved for all the columns. If you see now, this is not being displayed. So I'm executing the query from SQL Plus to differentiate that you do not have anything in the commission percentage column. So whenever you do not have anything in the commission percentage column, your SQL developer will display it as a null. Your SQL developer, it is displaying, for our understanding, it is displaying. But it doesn't mean that you have a value called as a null within the column expression, within the column commission percentage. So if you see, everything is a blank, everything is a null. We can't even call it as a blank. Everything is a null wherever the data is not available. It is called as a null. So you should be very careful when you are handling your null values with respect to the arithmetic operators. So whenever you are handling the null values, so you should be very careful whenever you are using the null values with respect to the commission, with respect to the arithmetic operators. So what happens is that arithmetic expressions containing a null value will be evaluated to null value, which means whenever you are adding something to the null value, it will be evaluated to null. Whenever you are subtracting anything to this, it will become null value. And whenever you are modifying or whenever you are multiplying something with a null value, this also becomes null. Whenever you are dividing even any arithmetic operator, what you do on the null value will be evaluated to null. So let's say commission percentage column will give you the monthly commission of the employee. That means he will get monthly commission as 40% of his salary. 14,000 is a salary and 0.4 is a monthly commission. So when you, let's say now you have a requirement to calculate what is the monthly commission paid to each employee. So how will you calculate? Salary into commission percentage will become the monthly commission. So when you try and do that, select last name, so salary, and you have the salary into commission percentage column, and I want to calculate the annual commission. So when you try and do this, since wherever you have the null value present in the column, so the commission will get evaluated to null. So what has happened to this? Okay, let's differentiate it by retrieving the commission percentage also. When you try and retrieve the data here, salary, commission percentage, you can do it. So King salary, commission percentage is null. So 24,000 into null, it is evaluated to null. 17,000 into null, it is evaluated to null. You cannot perform any kind of an arithmetic operation using the null value. So how to come across these kind of situations? So in the next lesson, we are going to see how to convert the null values, how to replace the null values in the query by using the NVL function. We'll see in the next class how to handle the null values, using the NVL function. So far, any questions?
Yeah, this null value can only be attributed to only some specific column, right? Like it cannot be like a character. It has to be only like a variable, right?
No. Yeah, I mean even for character columns, if you're not providing the value while inserting, it will take it as a null value.
Okay.
So now, so far when we discussed about this, if you see the header, how the header is being displayed, whenever you are using an expression, the expression is getting displayed in the header. So now, instead of displaying the entire expression, we can replace this entire expression by using an alias. Alias is nothing but providing another name to this. So how to provide it? Let's say I want to provide the name as, you can use the keyword as, and then provide the another name. So this is the annual commission. So what will happen when you execute the query? So instead of displaying this complex expression, it will display this value in the header. It will display this value in the header. So now if you see, it is displaying the annual commission. And similarly, you can use the as keyword while providing the alias, or you can also just give the space and then provide an alias column. Provide an alias word, alias name. So instead of last underscore name, I just want to display it as a last name. So you can use an as keyword, or you can just provide a space after the column name and then execute this, it will be displayed. There are the two ways that you can provide an alias. And one thing here you have to understand is that, let's say I want to provide a alias which is having a alias word which is having a space in between. So if you have a alias word which is having a space in between, then you need to enclose that in the double quotes. Otherwise, it will throw the error. So suppose, let's say you are trying to use it, so it is throwing the error saying that because you have a space here in between, you cannot understand what is a column here and what is an alias here. So that's the reason. So you need to enclose that in the double quotes whenever whenever you have the annual commission. So now this is your annual commission that you have the values which are present. Okay, so that is how you can provide an alias for a column, so which will be helpful to replace the complex expressions by this. That's